Here we are again. Time for another New Zealand Aviation Podcast. I know it's been a couple of weeks. Went and caught up with the family, Martin, a whole bunch of them for 4 days. Even went to a small town ball.
There you go.
It was a loggers and sailors and loggers ball, I think. And I only came into it very late, so I didn't have a costume sorted out. So I made myself an eye patch.
Okay. Oh, well,
and cut out a parrot, which I tried to mount on my shoulder.
But it didn't work, did it?
Well, it kind of did because because it did get in, and I positioned the parrot as if it was drinking out of a glass of wine, which was quite entertaining, caught a few people's eyes. And then at the end of it, because I built it on a little box, I had quite a bit of capacity to take home uneaten sausage rolls and fish pies
and asparagus rolls. Asparagus rolls.
So it actually turned out to be quite a useful piece of kit. But yeah, it was a great weekend and really couldn't get the connectivity out of there. Meanwhile, you've been sitting in a Viscount cockpit all this time.
Yeah. That's basically what I do. When I'm not doing other things, I'm sitting. It's not comfortable, but I like it.
Well, not a lot of room in that cockpit. I think they always used to complain to pilots about the lack of room. And when they sold them to United Airlines, they were really grumpy, the pilots, because they were used to very, bigger cockpits. And this thing's sort of tiny. I mean, look at it. Well, I don't know if you can look at it, but, it's sort of scrunched up controls. It hasn't even got a proper yoke. They look like they go into the panel.
There's two. I'll tell you this, but then I want to go back to asparagus rolls. This was at a little aviation museum at Moorabbin, down outside Melbourne, just to the sort of southeast of Melbourne.
Right.
And it's an awesome little museum. If anyone's ever in Melbourne and got an hour or a couple of hours to spare, go down to Moorabbin to the big GA airport there, and find that museum because it's cool. They've got a Gannet, and I think they've got a Mirage, and a whole heap of things. Yeah, and you can go in them. You can wander around in them.
Yeah. I think they had quite a fleet, TAA. Of course, all the British countries or Commonwealth countries. But, they sold a few in the States too. Capital Airlines flew Viscounts, I think. Did Continental? They might have.
It was the Great British plane that kind of was, but not really.
They made over 400, I think. I used to have the film of the early version BEA aircraft, like in the late 50s. It's a promotional film from Vickers with the guy who designed it, their chief designer. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was a very British, looked like John Cleese, a shorter version of John Cleese. And, it follows a flight from London to Rome in this beautiful new fast turboprop airliner. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and you realize how tiny they are when you walk around one. I mean, they're really not big.
No.
But with giant windows.
Yeah, big oval windows, elliptical windows.
Really
beautiful
cool
view. And they used to scoot along. I think they were about 320 miles an hour or something, top speed.
When you watch the early promotional videos, smooth and fast across Europe. Yeah. Now, asparagus rolls. Let's get back to asparagus rolls. For the other audience member who's not in this part of the world or in New Zealand, there is a gathering in New Zealand is not complete without asparagus rolls, and basically what it is, it's a bit of white buttered bread, like Wonder Bread or something, with a bit of butter on it, with some generally tinned asparagus laying diagonally across it.
Yeah.
And then they roll it up.
A finger of asparagus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so what's so wrong with that?
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I said, "What the hell's that?" Oh, that's an asparagus roll. Oh, okay. And Kiwis don't seem to eat a lot of asparagus unless it's in a roll.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah.
And of course, where it's one of the fastest acting foods known to man.
Yeah.
I would have thought they sort of had an origin in sort of lunch get-togethers in aristocratic homes in the UK. Like I say,
I don't think
would
so.
someone pass out the asparagus rolls?
maybe that's what isolated farmers at the end of the world may have convinced themselves at some time. But asparagus rolls to me, I mean,
like
don't get me wrong.
Cucumber sandwiches, that.
No, it's not quite the same league as a cucumber. But it seems to be, don't get me wrong, they're quite nice. It seems to be a sort of a holdover from the prawn cocktail era.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Sort of like walk shorts and walk socks.
Yeah.
Era. The thing about asparagus rolls, though, is I think it's the combination of the bread that you talked about and the asparagus itself. There's something about those two mixed together that people actually quite like. I mean, in Otago, they have those cheese rolls, don't they? I mean, it's just cheese on a piece of bread, but they're making such a huge deal out of it.
Yeah.
As if it was something. It's nothing.
No,
cheese on a bit of bread. Okay. Anyway, but no, lovely pick of the Viscount cockpit. It's cramped and it's British, but it looks like the real deal just looking at it. I like those big tillers, for the nose wheel steering there.
Yeah.
They look like they're off a ship, one of those waterproof door sort of things. Okay, so we'll get into aviation, plenty to talk about. The FAA administrator's been flying the MAX. He looks like the man. Good to see someone running that organization who has all that experience, right? I mean, the guy's flown basically everything, and I think he ended up being the chief pilot or fleet manager or something for Delta, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
He's been flying, so we'll talk about that. Funny, also that 787 thing, I think the problem, airframes, we'll talk about that. Didn't they come out of the other production center, not Seattle? Yet they're wanting to put all the production to that center. I mean,
it was always on the cards because the parts for the 787-10, I think it's called, are made in South Carolina. They can't be transported to Seattle because they're too big.
Okay.
The tail sections fly in from Italy, so it's just a shorter travel distance. People were forecasting this 10 years ago. As demand's fallen off, there's no point in having two final lines, right? So they will have to make sure they put them together right, and a lot of the issues they've had with not putting them together right seems to have come out of Charleston, South Carolina.
There's that. Air New Zealand's shares have gone up, bounced back. We talk about that, but just a little wrap up here, because you're in one of the most you're next to one of the most, I don't know, non-free states in the free world right now, Victoria. How's the COVID thing? Is it still rocking along with daily totals and infection rates, or are people starting to lose interest now, I wonder?
Well, he started polling badly, right? So
Daniel Andrews.
Daniel Andrews' polling numbers are not going down, so people are expecting things to open up a lot more quickly now, because it really wants. I mean, there's been it appears to be poll driven, and I don't know whether you follow. Well, I don't really follow it, but you can't avoid it here. Two things. I was reading in the West Australian newspaper. They were talking about a ship, and this is the words they used. A ship infested with the deadly virus has been denied docking permission at.
How about the sound of that?
Yeah, a ship infested with the deadly virus.
I know.
And three crew members had to be evacuated and are now in, wait for it, hotel quarantine. Hang on, how sick were they? Yeah.
Well, not enough to go to ICU.
No.
Yeah. No. They persist with this is the thing. They persist with that catastrophe language, and there must be a purpose for it, because it's ethically it's not up to it. So it must be they get the click-throughs, those headlines, those stories, they get the clicks, and boom, they've made some money.
Interestingly, Clive Palmer, I don't know whether you know, that businessman,
Western
Australian businessman, and he's sued the state government about their border closure, maintaining it's illegal and everything, and the state premier is going hard against this. But then yesterday he made what everyone here is saying is a colossal mistake. He said in an interview, he said that, why would we want to open the borders? our wages are higher here. We don't want people spending that money outside the state, which is in direct contravention of the Constitution of Australia, which guarantees unhindered
Yes.
trade and everything across the border. So now people are saying, well, he's just stuffed his court case, because if they can pin this on him to say, well, you're only doing this for economic reasons, that's illegal and you're not allowed to do it. And a similar thing's happening in Victoria. Someone's suing the state premier. And of course, if they lose, if the state government loses, and don't forget, Western Australia and Victoria are hardly likely to get a lot of support from the federal government in this court case. If they lose, they are liable for losses and damages.
Wow.
So it could be big. Could be. Probably won't be, but could be. Yes.
Still a few battlers, though, willing to have a go, eh?
Yeah. Well, Clive Palmer's hardly a battler, but yeah.
Well, put yourself out there anyway. It seems things are relaxing because that Air New Zealand share price that I alluded to before must have risen up to $1.49, 7.2% increase in value, because there's a perception now, to whatever level, but it have to be some sort of level that makes sense, that this bubble thing is possible, and they're going to see higher earnings. And of course, the government's always there to save it. So, yeah, the share price is going up, even though they aren't going up much because they're not really doing much flying.
Well, and also the shares are essentially worthless anyway, so they've gone up from a pretty low base. And the travel bubble, you watch the haste with which they unravel this will be unseemly, and I think the only thing stopping them unraveling it quicker is trying to keep it less unseemly, because it'll all be. I mean, first of all, last week they were saying, oh, there won't be any travel before March. Then it was, well, maybe before Christmas. And now it's in a week and a half, they're opening up 2 states. Yeah. Okay, it's only one way at this point. So Kiwis can come to Australia, but apparently they'll still have to go through quarantine upon return to New Zealand. But you see how long that lasts.
No, well, I was going to say that's not possible. But also, there's this new testing ability that's coming up thanks to the US. 15 minutes, it's a saliva test. There's no sticking anything up the back of the nose. And surely, if you want to control spread of the, what was that headline again? Infested. We don't want to infest aeroplanes with these things. That you could have checks well in advance of your travel that's reliable, that you can travel on, and you basically, you've been tested, you can travel. They'll do that. Surely that's another step. But the problem is, though, what I worry about is the rest of the world will open up, but we'll still be down here trying to eliminate it.
Yeah. And don't forget that test. They're saying it now. That test is not super accurate, right?
Well, but that doesn't matter, because you can still control numbers.
But it does for the individual, because they'll get an arbitrary 6-month travel ban, whether they and if it's a false positive or something, they'll say, oh, you can't travel. It's a great test.
Well, you can't do anything for 2 weeks.
Test. It's a great test for looking at the level within a population. It's not a great test for individual emissions.
Eventually there'll be a herd. We're going to have to wait for a herd immunity. It's decades.
Well, people, there are quite a few more and more voices out there saying that actually happened back in May.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And it's essentially over, right?
And it's surprising, from what I've gleaned, that you don't actually need a huge amount of people in a population to make herd immunity work.
Yeah.
It's not like everyone has to, or 80% have to be immune. You around 20% still creates quite a buffer of herd immunity and slows it down. That's what it does.
It's all about the buffer, yeah. And it's all about the buffer. It's all about understanding the tests and what the results actually mean, and the amplification rates and all this type of thing, which is why, it is a truism. The more you test, the more cases you're going to find.
Yeah, well, that's what Trump said, but he got pilloried to hell for it.
That's what Boris Johnson said as well. He said the point is to find all these cases But all it's done led to panic because we've got 6,000 cases today. Yeah, but only 4 of them are in hospital.
Yeah,
they never seem to join that together.
No, that's what I've been banging on about forever, and that's again part of the. It's becoming a cliche, the fear porn cycle. Where you just always putting the worst light on everything and getting people stirred up and anxious. And in doing this today, we know now that if you can believe the news, Donald and Melania Trump and some other people in the White House have tested positive for coronavirus. The last update I saw was that he was experiencing mild symptoms. So that's an interesting twist. And then, of course, there was that debate, and it'll be interesting because a lot of people are saying, karma. So what's going to happen? Is he going to be all right, or is he going to get really ill, or even worse than that? I mean, what's going to happen? The best reality TV show on the planet continues.
He's going to come out of it in 2 weeks saying hydroxychloroquine saved him, and we should all open up because it's nothing.
Well, I see he's on a cocktail of antibody or antigen treatments or something. All right, let's talk aviation stuff, and that's a really good shot, don't you think, of the FAA administrator, Steve Dixon, who's been flying the MAX in the last week, and from what I'm reading here, it's kind of on track, but he's saying that they're not at the point yet where they've completed the process. We're in the home stretch. So before the end of the year, do you think?
Oh, yes. Whether or not Europe follows suit, but yeah, definitely, which is a hell of a long time to have a plane out of action.
Yes.
Fortunately or unfortunately, nobody wants it anyway at the moment. So that's going to cause issues, and it's also going to cause issues for obviously both manufacturers, but Boeing's also going to have a whole pile of 787s and everything else stacked up that no one's actually taking. No one's in a hurry to take aircraft at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder how long you can handle that, how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Because look what Airbus is doing with that long-haul version of the A321neo. They're bloody selling like hotcakes. Suddenly, everyone with a medium-range international route, doesn't matter where you are, wants them to go instead of wide bodies. I mean, they got a winner there. That's going to be cash flow for them. Boeing won't have that.
No, Boeing doesn't have that, and that's very regrettably, I guess, Airbus have found themselves in a really, really good position because that plane also, because it's obviously it's got a lot more hardware in it to let it do the long range, but it's relatively easy to sort of recertify it or reconfigure it for short range. So once the market picks up again, they're going to have a whole lot of A321s that can do long range if required, but are quite happy to do short range.
Yeah, like with the one thing kind of fits all. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's from the same it's from the family. So, if you're an A330 pilot and being replaced by an A321, you can fly that no problem. You don't lose your job or get furloughed or something like that.
Maintenance systems, diagnostics, everything will all be from the same family. And it also gives Airbus a very useful bargaining tool with airlines that are saying, well, we don't want those A350s, but we are interested in the A321. Airbus will be saying, well, don't cancel the A350s. Let's just defer them, take these, and then we're trying. Whereas Boeing doesn't have that.
Yeah, they can do deals, big deals.
Big deals, a lot of deals.
They can trade up the whole thing. I see the last A380 went through the village, had gone through the village, has been assembled and rolled out, I should say.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, that's sad, eh?
And didn't I see somewhere that they're making a restaurant out of one of the Singapore?
Yeah, Singapore Airlines is, but I don't think it's. Yeah, I didn't follow the story because I don't.
No, did I? So much for clickbait for me, eh?
Yeah.
Anyway, so this MAX thing is quite interesting because no one's saying exactly at this stage, what the final package of software and training and procedures is going to be. All he really said, the FAA administrator, and the bit that I watched is it would have to be safe enough for him to let his family fly on. So it's and that's fair enough. That's a good bar, high bar, but that's what he said essentially.
It's a lot of rework is going to be needed. I wonder how much of it they've done, because some of it will be dependent on the sign-off from the FAA. They won't be doing all of it in case the FAA wants to change. So they've got a lot of work to do. It's talking about training, not only, of course, the 737 MAX pilots, would-be 737 MAX pilots need obviously training and simulator training. There's very few 737 MAX simulators, but they'll be ordering them like crazy. Boeing will have to pay for most of those. They'll also have to give rebates back to Southwest Airlines if extra training is required, to the tune of $1 million an aircraft. But with all these pilots in furlough, in order to stay current, they're all going to need simulator training. And now the guys at Delta, I was reading a piece, they were saying that they can only do about 1,500 sessions through a simulator in a year.
Right.
So
how many people are backed up then?
Exactly. And how long are they going to be backed up for? And how many of them are going to lose their certification because they can't get in front of a simulator?
Could they, through software and engineering changes, convert like next generation, 700, 800, 900 simulators to essentially have the same physical procedure? And because it's a procedural thing, really, is how to deal with this problem if it comes up, right? I mean,
yeah, well, you'd have to put the right buttons. You'd have to retrofit them.
Yeah, well, it might be easier to doing that than building. If you can't get the throughput there, you're going to have to find some creative way of doing it, surely, or do it on the real airplanes is the other way of doing it.
But if they've got 2,000 furloughed pilots on the 800, they can't take that simulator out of. It's going to keep them busy. Going to keep them busy for a while.
It's a huge headache, Huge headache.
Yeah. Yes, I mean the other option would be to have check pilots, lots of check pilots, and take them out in the actual aircraft.
Because there's quite a few aircraft sitting around. They could get 20 airworthy again and fly them around Boeing Field and do whatever, or Moses Lake, and do it like they used to do it in the old days.
Yeah, I think the insurance companies that basically run our lives wouldn't like that.
Okay, well, maybe, yeah. Anyway, they're going to have to find a way. Otherwise, they then have problems actually physically getting them back in service. That's not a nice situation to be in either. If there's a bottleneck there, you want to get them back, but they're still sitting in the car parks,
Yes, and not just the 737 MAX. All aircraft, like Air New Zealand's grounded its 777. Okay, Air New Zealand doesn't have a problem with simulator capacity. But a bigger airline that's grounded a lot of its aircraft, if they suddenly want to get all their pilots up to speed, that might be the limiting factor, not getting the aircraft in the air.
I see the latest GE engine for the 777X has been now certified, right? So that means it's good to go.
Yeah.
Because weren't there a few issues with that, like about a year ago, that slowed things down?
Yes, there were. So it's taken longer than expected, but I suspect that was between Boeing and GE, that was a useful mechanism to slow the 777X program down a little bit.
Was it those? I forget what, I may have read it. The stators in the engine were.
Yeah, something to do with it.
I think because they've always had GE engines have always said their thing is movable. Stator blades, not fixed.
I think they're all movable now.
Well, no, but back in the day when they had that CFM engine, when they went on the DC-10, that was that deal. It's 134,000 pounds. It's incredible.
A lot of power.
Yeah, 15-foot fan or something.
So Frank Whittle, who ended his career as a consultant to GE, will be very proud.
Right. Yeah. He probably guided all that through to where it is now.
No, he was a big pusher of the turbofan, and he actually ended up living in College Park in Maryland, just outside of where the GE facility is up there. Wow. And he basically never forgave Rolls-Royce.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, so that means that it can't be too far off first deliveries, surely.
Well, it's on the planes now, right? So it just wasn't certified. So that's gone. That's done. So, but the plane hasn't been fully certified yet. No, the plane's still going through the certification process. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you pulling something up?
No. I was just looking at some of the numbers around the first turbofan.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's all right. Let's move on.
That rumor that I'll share the page so the folks can see. Some of the BA 74s were going to the Rossiya airline, Russian airline. Apparently, that was just a rumor, not true. I've seen some of the pictures from airfields around the place, and there are lots of British Airways 747s. All scattered around the place, but they had lots of tails, didn't they? They had lots of them in the fleet.
It's just mad, eh?
Yeah. What do you do with all that stuff? You just recycle the metal, I guess.
I see one of the airlines, and I think it's Delta in the States, has started giving you can buy a baggage tag made out of an MD-80, MD-83.
Yeah. I see they've grounding some of their A220s.
I didn't read that, are they?
Yeah, but because of the way, as I read it, the way their seniority works, the least senior in the pilot group are the A220 pilots. So they get furloughed first.
Oh, okay.
And that means that proportions of that fleet get taken out of service because it's mainly the lower time pilots or newer, way down the seniority list who fly them,
So it's kind of weird. It's the low capacity plane with the cheapest operating costs, which might be exactly what they need on more and more routes, gets canned.
I know. It's silly. I mean, not all of them, but some of them, a proportion of them. Yeah. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Sort of ironic in a way, isn't it? While we're here, I want to just read out this email that we got from a guy called Daniel Felton. I'm just bringing it up now. I want to read it out to the folks because it's really nice, and we really we do like the
bit of feedback.
Okay, so Daniel Felton writes, "Hi Paul, just wanted to send you a quick email commending you and Martin on a consistently great podcast." He then describes how he bought a video of mine, Airside NZ, I made in the 90s. I pulled a lot of my footage together and sort of made this compilation video, and he bought it at RAF Mildenhall Air Fate in the mid-90s. Martin, these things travel, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he says he lost the VHS ages ago, but he became a pilot. He moved from England to Southwest Florida, and he says, I've had various adventures along the way, and I thank you and Martin for inspiring me on the journey. I'm now 45, still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but as has been the case for many, I'm grounded due to COVID, so that decision might have to come sooner than I originally expected. Well, let's hope that works out all right. And he says he avidly listens to the podcasts, and he also tells his mates to have a listen. So thanks, Dan, for your email. Fantastic. And Martin, he says, for what it's worth, I'm particularly interested in the various routes and types used in connecting the British Empire, an enormous subject I know, in brackets. If you guys get a chance to discuss this, it would be great, and also your own experiences of flights on unusual types. So there you go. That's nice, and I reckon that's a great subject, and we possibly talk a bit about it in this podcast, but also go back to it because it's such a big story over such a long period of time, involving so many types of aircraft, though we're probably going to talk about one today, which has always been a favorite of mine, and I know it's a favorite of yours. But also to know that, just chatting about this stuff and chewing the fat, as we say, can inspire people to go and follow their dreams, Martin.
That's it. Yeah. Wish I'd done that.
Yeah, wish I'd known someone like that.
No.
Along the way. So, but feel free to email or write. I think we've got the details somewhere in the graphics surrounding that. So I don't know when you want to get into talking about, let's do it in just a moment, because one of the other stories that I've been following is the C-130 F-35, I think, collision that happened in the US, I think over California. I'm going to bring up the screen again. There it is. There's the C-130. Looks like J model or something. KC, so it's a tanker. And if you look at the damage on that thing, Martin, on the right wing, all the blades are gone, but the engines are still there. I don't know if it's number 3 or number 2, but on the left, the inboard engine and prop seem to be okay, but then the outboard is missing. Looks like a couple of blades, and what is left on there looks shorter than they should be. The guy ejected from the F-35, and they brought this KC-130 down in this field here near San Diego. It happened. So incredible that no one was killed, and I think the F-35 pilot got minor injuries. But just look at that aircraft there. Incredible.
There would have been excessive vibration, I believe, at some point during that time.
Yeah, but I wonder what how the blades came off. There must have been some, there's been a physical, something's come off something and mown right through them.
Yeah. Well,
be the hose, wouldn't it?
Well, I think it was. Yeah. I reckon. Yeah, something's. Yes, it's just amazing.
You can see there's fuel coming out of the wing there. That's where the drogue tank should be. Yeah. And I would imagine something's happened. That thing's actually come off, but the hose must have whipped around and got caught in the props or something.
Yeah, fascinating, eh?
Wow. So anyway, that was a hell of a story. You imagine what that was like in the aircraft. It held together pretty well. As I say, those engines are in place. And I reckon that came out of, because remember they had the Lockheed Electra had that engine nacelle problem, and if the prop became unbalanced, the thing basically ripped the wing off. Same engine.
Well, they'll have learned from that.
Yeah, well, same engine back in the day for the C-130, and probably a similar wing. So it's held together.
Prop, right? Different prop.
Yeah, well, way different prop.
The Electra had those like incredibly
big
wide
paddles.
Yeah. Or
still does. Yeah. And the early C-130, same. But anyway, wow. I bet there are a few relieved people once they got on the ground and were able to get out and realize they'd made it. Anyway, so this whole question about the Empire routes, and we were talking about it in a phone conversation just a day or so ago, and you mentioned that Handley Page airliner of I think it first flew in 32, 33, something like that. Was it then, or maybe even earlier?
It flew a lot later. It's kind of an interesting amalgam of sort of the nose looks pretty modern.
It does.
And the materials look quite modern. It's that corrugated duralumin or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And then the further back you look, the more it looks like a sort of a Vickers box kite.
That's right. And then above, you've got 2 huge wings and 4 engines sort of in a triangle or angled, and those huge wooden props. Would they have carved that out of one hunk?
No, they would have been laminated up.
Right. Okay, because I was just thinking, you're looking at them, they're monsters,
Yeah.
Okay, so the aircraft it was the HP-42, isn't it?
The Handley Page HP-42, powered by four 500 horsepower radial engines. And if I was in charge, British Airways would be flying the HP-42 and probably the VC-10, and that would be it.
Yeah, no need. What a great complementary fleet that would be.
That would be awesome.
Maybe a few Comet 4s.
Yeah, maybe.
Just for elegance.
But if I was, I think it's great that you get these billionaires like, Paul Allen, who's, unfortunately passed away. But you get these guys that go off, they want to build rockets and all this type of thing. And it's all about advancing the human race and everything. And I think I would advance the human race by building replicas of the Handley Page HP-42 and flying around very, very slowly, like that Austrian guy did with that Dornier seaplane.
Yes.
That triple.
I've actually been on that. I've been on that at Oshkosh. Awesome. I filmed all in it, interviewed the guy, actually. It's really a cool thing. And it's, I tell you what, it's not a bad living environment, because in the cabin there, he had everything that he needed to, like, a nice little bed and everything. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that aircraft just has a look that's, I mean, it looks sort of prehistoric, but yeah, at the same time, it doesn't. At certain angles, it's a very good-looking aircraft. Now, where do they used to fly those? Because the footage I've seen is sort of like, taking off from, I think it was even the first flight, a misty sort of field. It wasn't even a paved runway, grass runway.
And this sort of ties into the whole Empire flying route thing. They were actually based in Cairo.
Right.
So their operating base was Cairo, and they used to do the Africa and India. So out of Cairo, they'd go east and north, and then further south.
Yeah.
And they had cool names like Heracles, Hannibal.
Yeah, that's right. They're all H names, weren't they? How
and
many were there?
They got modified. They became the HP 42 morphed into the HP 45, and there were 4 of each. So they're only
incredibly safe.
Yes, they were. I mean, they trolled along at just over 100 miles an hour. A very, very sedate.
Oh, yeah.
Would have been a great view out of the window. The engines were behind you, so it would have probably been relatively quiet. Well, I think they were behind the day cabin, because of course you had the day.
Yes. Yeah, well, they probably really did grind away up there.
Yeah, I mean, just dragging dragging that structure through the air, let alone getting it off the ground. I mean, it's actually nearly 2,000 horsepower. So, it's quite a lot of power.
Yeah.
But it's a big old plane.
How many people could it take? I remember like mid-20s or
24.
24.
So 4 crews. 2 of them would have been flight crew. 2 of them would have been, in the cabin.
Yes.
Probably one of them making cocktails, as one does.
Yeah.
They had a wingspan of well over 100 feet. They were nearly 100 feet long.
And they had triple tail, didn't they?
Triple tail, triple biplane tail. They weighed about 12, 13 tons. Cruised at 120 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, boy. I wonder how they took the weather, because they would have been down in the weather all the time.
Not well.
Not well, yeah. Probably the windscreen leaked.
Oh, but also just that much stuff in the wind. I mean, the wind up 5 knots. They probably stayed at home and had a big lunch.
Yeah, that's right. If you were into a strong headwind, you could be hours later getting in.
Yeah. It's monsoon season. We'll be here for 3 weeks.
But they, how long did they use those things for, though? Did they?
Well, the war came in and basically ended it pretty early. So. Yeah. I think some of them were used as half-heartedly as transport during the war, and they all got destroyed.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, it'd be good to bring one back, wouldn't it? Like they brought back that Vimy.
Yeah, I think this is a much better aircraft than the Vimy. I know the Vimy has some sort of historical thing, and they only ever built 8 of these, but it's just an awe. So I had a model as a kid, and I just remember sticking the struts, the interplane struts and everything, and think, oh my God, who designed this and why?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, though, I mean, it's only, just 3 decades in since the Wright brothers first flew. They're already on to, making quite viable, airliners even back then. But for the people who could afford it, of course. I mean, that's the...
Well, also a typical British anachronism, because, yes, but, when was the Boeing 247 design? That wasn't much later than this, right?
No. Well, and the DC-1 and 2, I think, were around that time. Yeah, of course. They're way behind. They were still in the First World War.
The crowning glory of a line which has been dead for 5 or 6 years.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Compared to the others.
If people are interested in the whole the Imperial Air Route thing, there's a great book I read. I actually did it as one of my school books as a kid. It was written by a guy, I believe his last name was Doyle, and the the book is called Imperial 109, and it's about Africa and the murder and the intrigue, and it's actually a pretty good book.
Say that again, because you froze up and we lost the title. So just describe that again.
If anyone's interested in the whole Imperial Aero thing, there's a great book I read as a kid. In fact, I did it as a school report book back in the day. It's by a guy called Doyle, and it's called Imperial 109, and it's about Imperial Flight 109, a flying boat service from Durban back to London, and where they stop and all that goes on, and the murder and the intrigue and the blah, blah, blah. But I seem to remember it was a pretty good book.
Yeah. So the HP-42, let's just nail it. So when did it actually enter service? It was in the 20s, right? It was the 30s.
1931.
Yeah, 31. Okay. So they would have had around a year or two before they put it into service. So it just scraped in on the 30s.
The specification was issued in 1928.
There you go. And it's more First World War than the American manufacturers. They were already on to, like with the 247 and the DC-1 and 2 were probably flying, 30, 31? DC-3 came in when? 30.
I can check it.
Yeah, check it. But that would have been the competition. Well, I mean, when you're making only 8 planes just for one airline, I mean, you're hardly in the business of it, are you?
So the DC-2 first flew in 1934.
Okay, yeah.
And the DC-1, 1933, and let's have a look at the Boeing 247.
I mean, within a year or two of the thing, put it that way.
Yes, within a year or two. So the Proms were still basically making flying box kites.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Fokker, even the European manufacturers were making. I mean, even the British were making real aeroplanes, or not real aeroplanes, but less nostalgic craft.
And the Germans too. That little Junkers plane, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was the end of an era, and they went out with a bang because the thing looks awesome, and we should make more.
Yeah. Well, what would have replaced it then? We should maybe.
Well, the war basically did to it. So during
there was none. There was just military.
Yeah, it was a complete. And then after the war, of course, you had all sorts. I mean, they had the flying boat service was going. When did the flying boat service start?
Well, I mean, there was plenty of Sunderlands around, and Sandringhams, weren't there? After that, I mean, New Zealand had NAC even operated a Sunderland flying boat up to Fiji and out to the Chatham Islands, and that was in the 50s, you know.
Yeah, so it's that's what would have replaced it.
Yeah. All right. I reckon if you're a pilot in that era, the best time would have been when you flying the VC-10 down to all those countries in Africa, hot and high. You get everything. They would have got everything. And what a plane to be flying, you know, fantastic.
And you know, very few aids, you know. I mean, most of the landings would have been, I think all of the landings would have been visual.
Yeah. So, you know, you got totally hand flown, you know.
You'd have got the telegraph from Entebbe saying the weather's fine, come on down.
Yeah, that's right. And landing in heavy rain would be a constant through some of those countries.
Yeah.
So that would have been an incredible era, I reckon.
We'll talk more about it, and I'll do a lot more research because I have read quite a bit about it. And then they had these bizarre sort of routes that went east, west, and east across the world, you know. So it would go sort of Alexandria, across to like Aden to Colombo to somewhere in Malaysia.
Yeah. Wow.
Into Darwin and turn around, you know.
Yeah. I mean, very early on, they were flying all the way to New Zealand, BOAC with Comets.
Geez, that would have been exciting, eh?
And they came here with VC-10s for a while as well.
Yeah, a lot of stops on a Comet.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think they came through Australia.
Yeah.
But a lot of stops. Yeah, Comet 4. They could do 3,500 miles at a stretch because they used to do the Atlantic, remember?
Would have been 3 or 4 stops though, eh?
Yeah. Unlike the old days of the ship.
Yeah.
2 months or a month or whatever it was, 6 weeks.
My father flew. I think he flew. He flew one of those, and it was Sydney, Singapore, or somewhere. Sydney, Singapore, Colombo, Bombay, and then I think he even landed in Lebanon. Yeah. And then on up to London.
Boy, they were an experienced operator then, weren't they? They just went everywhere. They knew it all. God, what a network. Gee, what a network. Incredible.
Yeah, an amazing network. Yeah. And in Boeing 720s, well, no, that would have been 707 and VC-10. So not many people, not great range, not great economics.
Also, when they had the Comet problems, they ended up with the biggest Stratocruiser fleet of anyone.
Bizarre, hey?
They had to have them because otherwise, they'd have problems with their services. So they flew a huge amount of prop, had all the Britannia, and I think they had DC-6s, didn't they? And did they have Argonauts, the Canadian?
No, I don't think they ever flew the Argonaut. I think some charter airlines in England flew them. But that Stratocruiser was an interesting plane. You had high octane fuel, very high pressures, a tendency to backfire unless you got the mixture absolutely right. And their solution to that was, because engine fires was a major thing. The solution to that was to build the engine bearers. I don't know whether it was the whole thing or sections of the engine bearers out of magnesium, which would catch fire and burn through and let the engine drop away. And they had non-return valves on the hosing and everything, so that when it broke away, he's just like, well, that's an interesting solution. Design the engine to burn out and fall off.
Well, I mean, it saves the plane, right?
It does, and the pilots. I read somewhere that it didn't. Obviously, it wasn't a common occurrence, but a lot of them, as they came up through the ranks, had experienced it or been behind a flight or ahead of a flight where that had happened. Yeah. And we've just lost an engine over Greenland. All right, we're landing in Gander now because we're already on 3 engines.
Yeah. And the thing lives again. I think one of the designers, I think, main designers of the Stratocruiser, though he didn't lead the program, but he did his sort of training, and was Joe Sutter.
Okay.
Who was the 747 guy. He was crazy about redundancy, so that was probably something that he put in. He's got the patent for the engine mount on the 737-200, the pilot. Okay. Because he came up with the way they were mounted, snug under the wing. He's got the patent for it. Yeah, Boeing lets individuals in the organization be used to, I don't know if they still do, the patent holders if they came up with something.
I would have thought the guy who designed the Messerschmitt 262 would have had that patent, but anyway.
All right, so we'll keep going back, shall we, a little bit every time on the British Empire routes, and we can really get over a period of time, really get our heads around it.
Well, until we get accused of not being woke enough, and we should stop talking. We should maybe not use the word empire or imperial or anything.
I don't think our audience spends too much time losing sleep over stuff at that level anyway. I mean,
Well, I wouldn't want to offend anybody.
No, you wouldn't want to offend anyone, and we don't want to break PC rules.
No,
because that's where you can run into trouble. Anyway, so thank you again to Dan Felton, for suggesting that topic area. And while we've been talking in post-production, I've been putting in pictures of the HP 42 Martin, a fine-looking machine.
Wonderful looking.
Yeah, from Heath Robinson. Is that the description? It's like a Heath Robinson looking machine.
Yeah, it looks like I made it.
Is that how you do it? Whoops.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
No, I'll just nail a bit more on here. You never know.
Yeah. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Well, that's. I can't think. There's been a few occurrences. A couple of bird strikes, windscreens cracking. Nothing too major, except that F-35 KC-130 incident. The Bring Our Birds Home T-shirt #1 will be at the screen printers next week.
Okay.
So you want to get in early and buy your one, I know, Martin, so I'll put you down for one.
I will.
And that's the one showcasing the 737 ZK NAD. So
you ship to Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People will be able to buy initially through the Bring Our Birds Home Give a Little page. But if it and this is just a sample, really. I want to see how it goes. I mean, if we realistically, if we're to have a hope of recovering these airliners, and you got to try because they're the only ones left. We've got a bit of a inconvenience, though it could also be a good pause. You never know how these things turn out with COVID, but we're going to have to come back into it. We're going to have to go to places again and hustle. So we've got to get some money in. So this is a good way of doing it. And the interesting thing, and I've been really enjoying it, is the QR code, which is going to be as part of the graphic, just connects you to the details about the aircraft and everything. And that whole concept of a walking physical link is quite an interesting thing. And on the back, we're putting I'll put it up now in post-production, cool little image of the silhouette of the actual aircraft. So I'm hoping that people will like that. And if they do, we'll do the DC-8 and we'll do the DC-10 and the other ones. And hopefully that will just help in keeping the ball rolling and coming out of this COVID thing, which I mean, in a place like Brazil, they haven't locked down at all, man. They haven't locked down at all in Brazil. But I don't think they'd look favorably at the border here if you're coming back from someplace like Brazil. You're in the hotel and it's $3,000, and anyway. Yeah. So that's where we're at on that. I'm looking forward to putting that out and showing everybody. And good to chat again with you, Martin. I'll let you get out of the Viscount cockpit. You must be.
It's cramped.
Yeah, you're a bit claustrophobic sitting in the jump seat there. You must be looking right down the fuselage at all the seats and stuff.
I am. Yeah.
Turn your virtual background around and we can see what you're seeing. All right, so record date for this is October the 3rd. It's just gone nearly 1 p.m. on Saturday afternoon here, Martin. I think we're 3 hours difference now with daylight saving here.
9:49 here.
Yep. So good to talk. In the meantime, Paul Brennan here, as you can see, in the apartment in Auckland, and
Martin Oakes apparently in a Viscount at Moorabbin Airport, but really in suburban Brisbane.
See you later.
Cheers.